Howdy y'all, my name's Scott. I'm the author of Rivet Stone. I may be just some author, but let me tell you, I got a quick little tip for you to add a little more interest and make your actual chapters and your scenes a little more interesting. Add tiny conflict. Now what do I mean? What do you like? Like little ants are gonna start coming out and they're gonna eat the house? Like what do you mean tiny? No, so adding a little bit of micro conflict into some of your scenes will actually add a little more depth, believability, and actually kind of help with the pacing and keep the reader, interested in your chapter. Let's say, for example, the chapter is, the front half is two characters waking up, they're having breakfast, and right in the middle of the chapter, boom, turns out both of their parents are now in the hospital, and the rest of the chapter is them dealing with that sort of like major scene. And obviously, you're just as soon as it hears such terrible news, like there's obviously internal conflict. Perhaps it's so easy to think of like, oh, what if they have to rush to the hospital but now there's a bunch of traffic, or boom, now they get there and they can't even find their room, or they said they're already dead. Like there's a lot that you can do when a scene is already super dramatic. But even in these more mundane scenes, you can add, a little more, drama to your actual chapters. So instead of just reading a couple of pages of them, waking up, having a nice breakfast, everything's honky-dory, like, oh, how's the weather, dude? Everything's fine. Oh, we're just going to monologue for a little bit. Everything's great. And, it's like, okay, cool. I mean, I'm invested in these characters. I'm glad they're having a good time. But, like, I need some back and forth here. Where's the cut? Like, where's my hook for this chapter? I'm bored. Add a little bit of micro conflict, a little bit of tiny conflict. What does that mean? Well, perhaps, maybe the wife's like, oh, please, I'm just dying for bacon and eggs. Please, can you go ahead and make it for me, husband or whatever? I don't know. And, maybe they're going to the fridge and now there's no bacon and eggs. And then there's like a little bit of like, oh, well, I told you to go to the grocery store yesterday. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, I forgot. And he's like, okay, whatever. I guess we can make pancakes or something. That's fine. And then he's like, well, you can't make pancakes without eggs and milk. It's like, what do you mean? Well, like, we have the powder. You can just use water. And he's like, well, actually, it's just better without it. And maybe they have a little squabble and now they're just like eating Cheerios or something over the dining room table, and like now you're already like, oh geez, like they're already having to deal with this little extra little stress. And then boom, another even bigger conflict comes around, and it's just like, are they going to be able to handle does that mean just like all these other problems are gonna have to push to the side? And it's like, wow, okay, so even like these little tiny squabbles that they might have day to day, they can still come together because they're actually dealing with a bigger conflict. Or are these other things are actually gonna like feed into this other conflict? Or it's like, wow, these people totally get, there are so many, there's a lot more that can go into a scene. Add little tiny bits of conflict, right? It can ramp into like a big climactic scene. It can just engage your reader. You don't, every scene needs to have a purpose. If you want to kind of build out a rapport, if you want to build out some stress, using conflict is the way to do it. And there's so many little tiny, just a little bit of disagreement makes a story a lot more interesting. And see if you can't find some excellent spots to add some tiny conflict. So hopefully that helped. Give me a like, give me a sub, and let's get published.